Good morning, everyone. So today's topic is the composition, functions, and regulations of saliva from physiology. So first, we'll see about the properties and composition. So the properties includes volume, appearance, reaction, and specific gravity. So the total volume of saliva secreted is 1000 ml to 1500 ml for 24 hours, approximately about 1 ml per minute, and it's contributed by each major salivary glands. So the parotid gland by 25%, submaxillary gland secretes 70%, and the remaining 5% is secreted by the sublingual glands. So the appearance here is slightly cloudy. Reaction is slightly acidic with a pH of about 6.35 to 6.85. And the specific gravity is 1.002 to 1.012. So composition includes water and the solids. So the water is 99.5%. So the remaining 0.5% composed of the solids. So the solids includes organic substances, inorganic substances, as well as gases. So the organic substances contains enzymes like amylase, maltase, lingual lipase, lysozyme, phosphatase, etc. And other organic substances includes mucin, albumin, lactoferrin, immunoglobulin A, blood group antigen 6, free amino acids, non-nitrogenous substances like urea, uric acid, creatine. Everything is present in the saliva. So the inorganic substances are sodium, calcium, potassium, bicarbonate, chloride, etc. And the gaseous substances like oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen is also present in the saliva. So these are the composition of saliva. So how this saliva is secreted. So the mechanism of secretion, it acini and duct system, it's also known as a racemose type. It looks like a bunch of grapes. So the main duct gets this secretion from the acinus through the ducts, which is intercalated duct, and from there intracalated duct it gets drained, and from the intralobular duct it gets collected to the interlobular duct, and from the interlobular duct it's collected to the drained into the main duct, and finally it gets opened into the oral cavity. So the secretion, salivary secretion, occurs in two stages. One is changes in the acini and secretion from the ducts. So the acini secrete ptyalin as well as the mucin enzymes. As these secretion passes through the ducts, sodium gets reabsorbed and potassium is secreted. So the chloride is passively absorbed and the bicarbonate is secreted by the ductal epithelium into the lumen. So the functions of saliva. So it keeps the mouth moist, preparation of food for swallowing. So it includes the ingested food is moistened and dissolved by the saliva. It facilitates chewing. Moistened and masticated food is rolled into a bolus, and the mucin present in the saliva lubricates the bolus and helps to facilitate swallowing. And the main important function is appreciation of taste. So taste is a chemical sensation. So the saliva dissolves with the solid food substances by its solvent action, and the dissolved substances can stimulate the taste buds. The stimulated taste buds recognize the taste. And it also acts as a lubricant for the formation of bolus and dilutes hot and irritant substances, and thereby preventing injury to the mucous membrane. Cleansing and protective function, which washes down the food debris and prevents the bacterial growth. So the digestive function, so the ptyalin present in the saliva splits the cooked starch into the maltose, and maltose converts the maltose into glucose. And the next function is excretory function. It also excretes the urea, drugs, heavy metals, and thiocyanates. Other functions of saliva are the regulation of water balance, buffering action. It also helps in role of speech. So moistening and lubricating the soft parts of the mouth and the lip. Saliva helps in the speech, and if the mouth becomes dry, articulation and pronunciation becomes difficult. So the next one is regulation. how it is regulated. So the salivary secretion is a continuous process which is happening inside, and it's regulated only by the nervous mechanism. So the quantity of salivary secretion depends upon the activity of mouth. For example, during mastication, automatically the secretion increases, and even during sleep, secretion gets decreases. So this is done by the nervous mechanism. So the autonomic nervous system is involved in the regulation of salivary secretion. So salivary secretion is under neural control from the superior and inferior salivary nucleus, which is present in the brainstem region. So the nerves apply to the salivary glands. So salivary glands are supplied by both parasympathetic as well as the sympathetic divisions of the autonomic nervous system. So the parasympathetic preganglionic fibers to the submandibular as well as the sublingual glands arises from the superior salivary nucleus, which is situated in the pons. And the parasympathetic preganglionic fibers to the parotid gland arises from the inferior salivary nucleus, which is situated in the upper part of the medulla oblongata. And this picture shows the parasympathetic nerves to the submaxillary as well as sublingual glands, and the second one shows the parotid gland. From the brainstem region through the autonomic nervous system, it gets supplied. And the next one is sympathetic fibers. So the sympathetic fiber, preganglionic fibers arise from the lateral horn of first and second thoracic segments of the spinal cord. So the fibers leaves the spinal cord through the anterior nerve root and end in the superior cervical ganglion of the sympathetic chain. So postganglionic fibers arise from this ganglion and are distributed to the salivary glands along the nerve plexus around the arteries supplying the glands. So functions of the parasympathetic stimulation and the sympathetic stimulation. Parasympathetic stimulation increases salivary secretion. Sympathetic stimulation decreases the salivary secretion. So the reflex regulation of salivary secretion. Salivary secretion is regulated by nervous mechanism through reflex action. And the salivary reflexes are of two types. One is unconditioned reflex, second one is conditioned reflex. So the unconditioned reflex is the inborn reflex that is present since birth. So this induces the salivary secretion when any substance is placed inside the mouth. But conditioned reflex is the one that is acquired by experience. So this stimuli for the reflex are the sight, smell, hearing, or even thinking about some delicious food may increase the secretion. So this is known as conditioned reflex. So salivary secretion increases by the parasympathetic stimulation. Even smelling or eating favorite foods, presence of irritating food in the stomach increases the secretion. And it is decreases by the atropine and other cholinergic blockers as well as the sympathetic stimulation. Final is applied as physiology. So one is hyposalivation and another one is hypersalivation. Hypo meaning decreased, hyper meaning increased. So reduction in the secretion of saliva is known as hyposalivation, and it may occur even temporary or permanent. So the temporary because of fear, fever, dehydration, and permanent silolithiasis, which is the obstruction of the salivary ducts. It's congenital absence of salivary glands or hypoplasia or even Bell's palsy, paralysis of the facial nerve, hyposalivation occurs. And hypersalivation. The excessive secretion of saliva is called hypersalivation, and physiologically it occurs during pregnancy and pathologically due to tooth decay, any disease of esophagus, stomach as well as intestine, neurological disorders like cerebral palsy, mental retardation, stroke, Parkinsonism, as well as even some psychiatric conditions, salivary secretion may get increased. And other disorders of salivary secretion, one is mumps, xerostomia as well as drooling. Mumps is the viral infection which affects the parotid gland, and xerostomia is the dryness of mouth. Drooling is uncontrolled flow of saliva outside the mouth. It is often called tyelism. So that's all about the composition, functions, and regulations of saliva. Thank you.